MicroEnter is famous for walls of gadgets and rows of experts, but tucked away is the TV section. It is small and smaller than your average living room. Why fill it with brands you have never seen, models that disappear if you Google them, and deals that seem too good to be true? The official story says it is just about selection, but their real business strategy starts where the product listings end. What is really hiding behind those mysterious model numbers? And why are some TV sets in store only and never online? Let us unpack the secrets you are not supposed to notice, starting with the strange science of MicroEnter's TV aisle. Step into MicroEnter's TV aisle, and you might think you've wandered into a secret club. Just you, a handful of televisions, and a parade of brand names that sound like they were made up during a late-night game of Scrabble. While the rest of the store is a tech carnival, the TV section is more like a minimalist art exhibit. There is a reason for that. MicroEnter stocks more than 30,000 different products. But when it comes to TVS, the selection shrinks to a curated handful. It is not an accident. It is retail psychology in action. Experts call this the limited choice effect. Give people too many options and they freeze up. Give them just a few, and suddenly every screen looks like a winner. That is why you will spot maybe a dozen TVs tops squeezed between the gaming chairs and the wall of RGB keyboards. The brands are sometimes familiar, but most sound like they were invented in a focus group designed to test your spelling. Element A, Open N, Scepter. Names that do not exactly inspire confidence, or at least not the kind you get from Samsung or LG flagship models. But here is the trick, that scarcity is not about saving shelf space. MicroEnter's floor plan is all about funneling you to the products with the highest chance of closing a sale. With a smaller TV section, every screen gets its moment in the spotlight. The store is betting you will compare 2 or 3 options, not 20. And with fewer mainstream brands on display, those budget models start looking a lot more appealing, especially when the price tags promise 4K, smart features, and Dolby-sounding buzzwords. Retail analysts point out that MicroEnter real estate is valuable. Every square foot is a battleground between graphics cards, CPUs, and the latest must-have gadgets. TVs, especially the big boxes, are costly to display and even costlier to store. So, the aisle stays small by design. The weird brand lineup is not an accident either. Many of those brands are exclusive deals or offshoots, sometimes even produced by the same manufacturers as the big names, just with fewer bells and whistles, or a different badge slapped on the front. And if you are wondering why some of these models seem to vanish from the internet, the moment you try to look up reviews, you are not alone. The model numbers are often unique to MicroEnter, making comparison shopping a challenge. It is the retail version of a magic trick. Redirect your attention, limit your choices, and make every deal seem like the only game in town. But as you will soon see, the real mystery starts when you look at the boxes you cannot even buy online. Try searching for some of those TV model numbers from the aisle. Go ahead. Type in that Samsung U7900F or Element Zumo 40 in and watch them disappear into the digital void. These are not typos or last year's leftovers. They are what retail insiders call phantom models. MicroEnter shelves are full of sets with model numbers that do not show up on the manufacturer's official site or anywhere else outside a handful of retail partners. Take the Element Zumo 40-inch SKU 90437. You will not find it on Element support pages, and tech forums have chased its specs like a dog chasing its tail. The only solid trail usually leads back to MicroEnter and maybe a distributor manifest if you have industry connections. The UPC is sometimes retailer assigned, not issued by the brand. Even FCC filings often point to an original design manufacturer like TPV or High-Ends, not the name on the box. Procurement contacts who are willing to talk say these exclusives are born in the back room. MicroEnter wants a price edge and a model nobody else can undercut. So the original design manufacturer builds to order, tweaking features, swapping stands, or changing ports. The firmware can be a one-off with update files you will never see on the official support page. Serial numbers often run in a block unique to MicroEnter's order, which means if you try to register your set with the manufacturer, you might get a polite shrug and a link to generic support. The mystery does not stop at missing documentation. Some of these special models are time-omited, here for a year, and then gone without a trace. Others turn up in liquidation auctions, still sealed after their brief retail run. And if you are hoping for a deep dive review or a firmware update from the brand, good luck. Reviewers often cannot get their hands on these units, and the only specs you will find are whatever's printed on the MicroEnter shelf tag. Exclusive tends to mean untraceable. If you know how to trace a TV's real identity, you start with the UPC and the FCC ID. Even then, you might discover the set in your card has a different motherboard, a missing feature, or a firmware version no one has ever posted online, all of which raises a bigger question. What do you really know about the set inside the box, and what is the real story behind how it got there? Ask any store technician what happens to a TV after someone changes their mind, and you will get a look somewhere between a poker face and a smirk. The official line goes like this: TVs returned within 30 days with all the cords and packaging. Get a careful inspection. If everything checks out, they are supposed to be labeled as open box. But in the real world, the path from customer return to the sales floor is more like a maze than a straight line. Behind the scenes, there is a stockroom shelf where returned TVs pile up, each one waiting for a verdict. A technician, call him Dave, grabs a unit, plugs it in, and checks for dead pixels, weird noises, or the faint scent of last week's Super Bowl party. If the TV passes muster and the packaging still looks fresh, it might get retaped, tucked back into its box, and shuffled onto the sales floor. Officially, open box units are supposed to get a big bold sticker and a discount, but sometimes the only clue is a box seal that looks a little too homemade or foam inserts that have clearly seen daylight before. The Federal Trade Commission says any product that has been opened or used has to be labeled before resale, but enforcement is spotty, and the difference between pristine and pre-owned can come down to how creative a store gets with double-sided tape. Some TVs even get their software reset, wiping out any hint of previous setup screens or Wi-Fi passwords, but a savvy shopper can still spot the tells. Check for mismatched serial numbers between the box and the TV. Look for tape residue or extra layers of packaging, and do not ignore that faint scratch on the remote. Powering on a TV in store can reveal hidden menus showing usage hours or setup dates. Sometimes the only evidence that your new TV has already starred in someone else's living room. There are stories, unconfirmed but persistent, about demo units making their way back into regular inventory, minus the floor model sticker. These are the TVs that know every episode of The Office by heart. While most open box units are labeled, it pays to play detective, because the real question is not just where your TV has been. It is how it ended up back on the shelf in the first place. Some MicroEnter TV models have a backstory that starts in places you would never expect. Warehouse auctions, overstock lots, and the digital underbelly of the electronic supply chain. Ask a liquidator and they will tell you a surprising number of TV units on retail shelves did not roll straight from the factory to the store. Instead, they took the scenic route, sometimes passing through third-party distributors, sometimes even skipping the manufacturer channels entirely. Take the S90D65 in, for instance. This model surfaced briefly at MicroEnter, but try tracing its origins and you will end up on a wild ride through auction manifests and single-channel distributor lists. It never appeared on Samsung's main site, and after a short window, it vanished from MicroEnter's listings too. Industry contacts point to a batch purchased as part of a warehouse liquidation, brand new and sealed, but originally intended for another retailer. When that deal fell through, the lot was snapped up by a liquidator, repackaged with retailer-specific SKU numbers, and quietly filtered into MicroEnter inventory. This is not rare. Liquidation auctions run by companies like BTOC and Direct Liquidation regularly move pallets of TV units that were overstock, canceled orders, or special builds that did not make it to their original destination. Sometimes these are generic models, but just as often they are retail exclusives with slightly tweaked specs, unique firmware, or missing features compared to their mainstream cousins. One buyer described it as a grab bag. You get a manifest with model numbers, but the actual hardware inside can vary from batch to batch. The result is that MicroEnter's TV section becomes a patchwork of models you cannot find anywhere else, each with a paper trail that leads back to a warehouse, not a brand marketing department. Because these TV units are often bought in bulk at steep discounts, the store can offer prices that look unbeatable on paper. But that same supply chain means technical consistency is not guaranteed. One batch might have a different panel supplier or a mainboard revision that never saw the light of day in mainstream retail. For the shopper, it is a roll of the dice. The box is shiny, the specs sound familiar, but what is under the hood could be anyone's guess. Up next, the technical danger panels and internals. Pop open 2 boxes of the same MicroEnter exclusive TV, and you might think you are getting identical twins, but put them side by side, especially in a dark room with a high dynamic range test pattern, and the differences start to pop like a bad batch of popcorn. One screen glows with a decent punch, hitting 340 nits on a peak white patch. The other is more like 270 nits, struggling to make bright highlights look anything but gray. That is not just calibration. It is a classic case of the panel lottery, where the hardware inside your TV could be a lucky draw or a dud, and you will never know until you plug it in. An independent engineer named Sam has made a hobby out of buying these retail exclusive models and tearing them down for science. Her findings are striking. 2 units, both labeled as on 55 and 4K high dynamic range, each with a different LCD panel under the hood. The first uses an AU Optronics panel rated for 60 Hz native refresh and basic high dynamic range. The second, from a later batch, swaps in a BOE panel that technically supports 120 Hz, but the TV firmware locks it at 60 Hz anyway. Both boxes promise HDMI 2.1, but Sam's bandwidth analyzer tells a different story. One port tops out at 18 gigabits per second, classic HDMI 2.00 speeds, while the other cannot even manage full 4K at 60 Hz with Chroma 4x4x4. That is a rude awakening for anyone hoping to plug in a PlayStation 5 and get buttery smooth gaming. The real kicker is the marketing. The shelf tag might boast 120 Hz motion accelerator and HDR10+ certified, but in practice, you are at the mercy of whatever panel and mainboard combo happen to land in your box. Sam's lab results show up to 25% difference in measured peak brightness between units with the same SKU. Color coverage swings too. One sample covers 85% of Rec 709. Another manages 93%. Input lag and motion handling can shift with mainboard swaps, leaving some units snappier than others. No amount of box checking or spec sheet reading will tip you off. Manufacturers call this within tolerance. Engineers and home theater nerds call it a gamble. Either way, it means 2 shoppers can walk out of MicroEnter with the same TV and end up with completely different viewing experiences. And unless you are running your own teardown lab in the garage, you will never know which panel you got. The hidden cost is not just in the price tag, it is in the pixels, the ports, and the performance you thought you were buying. Turn on a budget smart television from MicroEnter, and you get more than just a welcome screen. These days, the operating system is often the real star of the show, and it is not shy about making itself at home. Within minutes, you are greeted by a parade of sponsored tiles, banner ads, and a warning that you must agree to a privacy policy before setup finishes. That is not just a minor inconvenience. Many of these televisions run on ADUP-supported platforms built by companies you have never heard of, with names like Zumo, Vita, or even proprietary forks of Android. Privacy advocates say these systems do more than offer streaming apps. They also collect viewing habits, app usage, and sometimes voice command data. Industry insiders point out that your television's main job is not just to display shows. It is designed to quietly build a profile of what you watch, when you watch, and sometimes which ads you ignore. Analytics pipelines built into the firmware ping servers every time you flip channels or launch a new app. And because many store-exclusive models get only a year of guaranteed updates, if that forced software upgrades can stop without warning, leaving your television stuck with whatever data sharing features it shipped with. Some televisions even require you to enable data collection just to access basic features. Miss an update window, and you might lose access to streaming apps entirely. The fine print in the setup wizard is easy to skip, but it is worth a closer look. A privacy advocate we spoke with said, "If the television was cheap, you are probably not the customer. You are the product. That is the hidden cost of bargain bin screens." Your viewing history becomes part of the deal, whether you realize it or not. Ask a MicroEnter employee about extended warranties, and you will see them light up like they just found a golden ticket under the register. The pitch is always the same. For just a little more, Priority Care Plus will protect your new television from disaster. But behind that friendly offer, the real story is buried in the fine print and in the commission structure most shoppers never hear about. The word here is warranties. Take the Priority Care Plus plan. It promises unlimited tech support, extended returns, and coverage that sounds almost magical. But dig into the paperwork and you will find a list of exclusions that would make a lawyer blush. Accidental drops are not covered. Power surges are covered only if you can prove your surge protector was on duty. Screen burn-in is a tough sale unless you can convince the claims representative you did not leave the news ticker on for a week straight. Many customers only discover these GOTAs after their claim is denied, often with a polite but firm email citing user error or a non-covered event. The real math is simple. Warranties are a profit center. For every shopper who buys coverage, only a handful ever file a claim, and even fewer get a payout. Sales associates know this. That is why they are trained to pitch the plan hard, sometimes more enthusiastically than the television itself. Some employees admit the pressure is real. Upsell the warranty, boost your numbers, maybe earn a bonus. It is not unique to MicroEnter, but it is a fact of life in electronics retail. One customer, still clutching a denial letter, summed it up. The only thing the warranty protected was the store's bottom line. So before you sign up, ask yourself, are you buying peace of mind or just padding the profit margins? When it comes to extended warranties, the safest bet might be reading the fine print before you hand over your card. Behind every discount TV, there is more than a price tag. There is a system built to move boxes and mine your data, not just to show you movies. As smart TVs get cheaper and privacy gets thinner, the real cost is not just what you pay at checkout. In a world of endless upgrades, the fine print is always changing. Stay sharp and tell me what you have spotted in the comments. Thanks for watching NextGen Picks. Don't forget to like, subscribe,